এটা জয়েন করে
শুভ সন্ধ্যা এবং স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি উপস্থিত সকলকে আমাদের আজকের এই আয়োজনে ওয়েবিনার অন কন্টেম্পোরারি ওয়ার্ল্ড পলিটিক্স অ্যান্ড সোসাইটি বিয়ন্ড পিস কর্তৃক আয়োজিত এই অনুষ্ঠানে সকলকে স্বাগত জানাচ্ছি। এখানে আজকের এই ওয়েবিনারে মডারেটর হিসেবে পুরো সেশনটি সঞ্চালনা করবেন ডক্টর কাউসার আহমেদ, এক্সিকিউটিভ ডিরেক্টর, কনফ্লিক্ট অ্যান্ড রেসাইলেন্স রিসার্চ ইনস্টিটিউট, কানাডা। এছাড়া আমাদের এখানে গেস্ট স্পিকার হিসেবে জয়েন করেছেন মিস্টার আব্দুল কাইয়ুম, হেড অফ কমিউনিকেশন, ইউএনডিপি; মারিয়া হুসেইন, অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট প্রফেসর, ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ পিস অ্যান্ড কনফ্লিক্ট স্টাডিজ, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ ঢাকা; এস আর খান অর্থী, সিনিয়র পার্টনার, বিয়ন্ড পিস। শুরুতেই বলে রাখা ভালো, আমাদের আজকের এই অনুষ্ঠানটির পেছনে একটু ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড স্টোরি আছে, যে আমরা বিয়ন্ড পিস এই নভেম্বরে একটি কল ফর আর্টিকেল অ্যানাউন্সমেন্ট দেই, যেটার রেসপন্সে আমরা বেশ কিছু আর্টিকেল আমাদের ইয়াং রিসার্চার এবং অ্যানালিটিক্যাল রাইটিং এক্সপার্ট যারা, তাদের কাছ থেকে বেশ কিছু আর্টিকেল আমরা সেখান থেকে সংগ্রহ করতে পারি এবং একটি ডাবল ব্লাইন্ড রিভিউ পদ্ধতির মধ্য দিয়ে সব মিলিয়ে মোট সর্বোচ্চ স্কোর প্রাপ্ত 5টি আর্টিকেলকে আমরা এখানে শর্ট লিস্টেড করেছি এবং সেই 5টি আর্টিকেলের যারা রাইটার এখানে অলরেডি আমাদের সাথে কানেক্টেড আছেন, তারা আজকে আর্টিকেলগুলো এখানে প্রেজেন্ট করবেন। এর পরবর্তীতে আমাদের অনারেবল গেস্ট হিসেবে যারা জয়েন করেছেন, তারা তাদের রেসপেক্টিভ ইন্টারেস্ট অফ এরিয়া নিয়ে কিছু কথা বলবেন বা আর্টিকেলগুলোর একটি ওভারঅল অ্যাসেসমেন্ট এখানে দিয়ে থাকবেন। অতিথিদের সাথে আমরা ইতিমধ্যে পরিচিত হয়েছি। এ পর্যায়ে আমি আজকে যারা প্রেজেন্ট করবেন তাদের নাম এবং পরিচয়গুলো জানাচ্ছি। প্রথমে আছে মাহিরাতুল জান্নাত, সেফগার্ডিং ম্যানেজার, ব্র্যাক ইন্টারন্যাশনাল; জুবাইদা অহনা ফারুক, স্টুডেন্ট, ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ পিস অ্যান্ড কনফ্লিক্ট স্টাডিজ, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ ঢাকা; চৌধুরী মুজাদ্দিদ আহমেদ, স্টুডেন্ট, ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ ইন্টারন্যাশনাল বিজনেস, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ ঢাকা; জয়ন্ত বসাক, স্টুডেন্ট, ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ আরবান অ্যান্ড রিজিওনাল প্ল্যানিং, জাহাঙ্গীরনগর ইউনিভার্সিটি; ত্রপা সরকার, ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ পিস অ্যান্ড কনফ্লিক্ট স্টাডিজ, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ ঢাকা। এছাড়াও আমাদের আজকে সম্মানিত অতিথিরা যে বিষয়গুলো সম্পর্কে বিস্তারিত আলোচনা করবেন সেগুলো হচ্ছে কন্টেম্পোরারি মিডিয়া ইনফ্লুয়েন্স অন সোশ্যাল ফেনোমেনা, কোভিড চ্যালেঞ্জেস ইন কমিউনিকেশন অ্যান্ড মিডিয়া, অ্যান্ড রিফিউজি অ্যান্ড সিকিউরিটি। এ পর্যায়ে আমি সরাসরি অনুরোধ করব আমাদের মডারেটর, আজকের এই সেশনটি যিনি সঞ্চালনা করবেন, ডক্টর কাউসার আহমেদ স্যারকে আমাদের ওয়েবিনারটি পরিচালনা করার জন্য। স্যার।
Thank you so much. First of all, very good morning from Winnipeg, Canada. And I understand it's evening in Bangladesh. It's a privilege to have been kind of in responsibility to run the show today. And thank you very much, Beyond Peace, for having me. But a bit of background, I think, would be appropriate before we start. Conflict and Resilience Research Institute Canada is a policy and research think tank from Winnipeg. We have co-founded this organization back in 2017 December, and we basically research on conflict issues and suggest policymakers in Canada to take appropriate policy actions. And over these 3 years, we have actually worked on Rohingya refugee crisis. And if you are able viewers, please visit our website and you will have adequate information on our contemporary research. And beside the Rohingya crisis research, we also study extremism and political violence, UN peacekeeping operations. And of course, we are expanding our activities in terms of refugee children education in the camps, especially in Cox's Bazar and Bhajan Chor recently. And this is one of the platforms that we use to communicate and get together in networking. And we have previously collaborated with Beyond Peace. I think at that time it was just coming out of its formal state. But we have, Orthi especially participated in a 4-part e-seminar with University of Netherlands at Hague. and we spoke about contemporary genocide cases of Rohingyas and the Congo Banyamulengis. So, without further ado, let's start our session today. And as you have gathered from the organizer, Ms. Tusi, she was kind of explaining how they have organized the session. So, there are two parts today. In the first part, we have invited five brilliant young, I would say, writers, those who put forward their articles, and they would be speaking about 5 minutes each on their topics papers, and after that I will have some questions ready for the presenters to kindly respond, and then the second part will start, and we have three esteemed guests today. They will be speaking on their respective topics, and we have allotted around 10 minutes each. And please stick to your time so that our viewers don't get bored about, because in today's world there is some fatigue with regards to Zooms and webinars. That's what I was told by my students here. Okay, so let's jump onto the first part of the session this morning, and we'll start the first presenter today, and her name is Mahiratul Jannat, and she's going to speak on media influence on gendered social phenomena. She's from BRAC, I believe, and it's a very interesting paper. I was very happy to see the number of ideas she picked up from the social context in Bangladesh in a very contemporary basis. So, Mahira, floor is yours.
Sir, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Um, I am going to share my screen right now. Hello, everyone. This is Mairatul Jannat. I'm currently working as a safeguarding manager at BRAC International. So today, the title of my presentation is Media Influence on Gender Social Phenomena, an overview. So now I'm going to discuss about what is actually social phenomena. So in simple words, the social phenomena is the individual, external and social constructions that constantly evolve and influence our lives. It has been found out that in the context of social phenomena, crime and other aspects of social violence are incredibly influential when it comes to shaping our behavior and opinions. For example, the gender stereotype portrayal of rape culture in media promotes behaviors including victim blaming, slut shaming, sexual objectification, etc. These actions of media are constantly influencing the individuals and subsequently changing the way that they behave and perceive. This also actually helps to set up a societal setting where rape is pervasive. So now the question is how Bangladeshi media is influencing on gender social phenomena. We all know that in Bangladesh, media is one of the most powerful tools to influence people's beliefs and attitudes regarding rape in this present information age. And the rape culture in Bangladesh does not exist in a vacuum. The cases we hear and read in the media are not isolated events, but these are the emblematic of a larger problem. And the system in place actually contribute to this pyramid. Our media, which is actually integral to shaping us as individuals, play a part in this contribution. And by not actively fighting this culture, media actually give it life. So now I'm going to discuss what are the problematic depiction of media in promoting rape culture. So the first problematic depiction is sharing trauma porn. So what is trauma porn? Trauma porn is actually the exploitation of other people's misfortune to generate buzz or social media attention. I think we all often see the depiction of suffering of women caused by rape in media and in print media and social media, which is profoundly dehumanizing. And at the same time, media also use art showing rapists as box shadows, and who is actually looming over who is actually looming over a survivor with a tearful eyes and a battered body. The news headlines are often gender insensitive because they have a strong focus on who was raped instead of who raped. This makes the identity of the rapist, mainly men, who are mainly men, unclear, And it also highlights the victim as the center of the incident without acknowledging the rapist roles. Uh, um, the movies and series create roles of male heroes exhibiting toxic masculine traits. For example, they often show the hero as the saviors of vulnerable female characters. And at the same time, that the trans individuals are often being portrayed as violent and obnoxious. And thus, as we often see that some popular songs and advertisements directly refer to attractive women as items, the male characters often frequently call women in demeaning names, such as Mal, Tatka Mal, and that Tatka Mal. And the popular advertisement often humiliate men for not being traditionally masculine, implying that without certain features, they don't deserve to have the identity of a man. Since the media, especially music, ads, and advertisement, are extremely influential, this practice can cultivate sexist mindset and reinforce harmful gender stereotypes. So, the print media and Bangladeshi literature often patronize and objectifies women in reports. Often, women are being portrayed as they have no other characteristics other than being beautiful and illusion. For example, in Devi, I think we all have read, Misir Ali does not find it problematic that a 16-year-old is married to a man in his 40s. In the Shari article, Abdullah Abu Said actually criticized women's choices for wearing tight clothes and short clothes and insisted that women should wear sharis as they look most appealing on it. So we are just at the end of so I'm just at the end of my slide. So it can be said that gender stereotyping in media leads to the normalization of behaviors that contribute to rape culture. When systematic sexism and gender inequality are part of the media, popular media, our society, especially our youth, intentional or unintentional, learns this behavior. We cannot deny the effect of media has on us, how we view women and gender and other gender minorities. And surely our media needs reform to help to put an end to rape culture in Bangladesh. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much. Brilliant. Very good. So we move on to the second presenter today, and her name is Zubaida Ohana Farouk from Department of Peace and Conflict Studies. And her paper is on Jammu Kashmir conflict and international law. And I almost forgot to explain to the viewers today that I actually received my MPhil degree from the same department back in 2006, and I continued my journey in peace and conflict. So I'm not a stranger to Department of Peace and Conflict Studies. Okay, go ahead, Ohana. Floor is yours.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm sharing my screen. Wait a minute. Just give me a
You
minute.
might want to check the connection settings in the Google Home app.
Good evening, honorable speakers, presenter, and a reviewer of this webinar on contemporary world politics arranged by the Beyond Peace. I'm Zubaida Ohana Farouk. I'm currently studying in University of Dhaka, and I'm doing my major from Peace and Conflict Studies. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so I have chosen the topic of international law for my essay, and I have shown the correlation between the international law and the ongoing Jammu Kashmir conflict that is going on between India and Pakistan, and how it can be affected by the international law. So the Jammu Kashmir conflict is a territorial conflict between India and Pakistan. It has mainly started after the partition of 1947, the Great Partition of the Indian subcontinent, when the division was made on the basis of religion, and the Jammu and Kashmir part was left aloof and it was not occupied by a single state. So presently, Pakistan is occupying 37% of the area with the regions Azad Kashmir and Gilgit-Baltistan, and India is occupying has been claiming the whole territory of Kashmir and Jammu and presently occupying 43% of the region, including Jammu, the Kashmir Valley, Ladakh, and the Siachen Glacier. During the Indo-Pakistan War of 1947, rebel forces grew up under the patronization of the Pakistan Army, and consequently, Pakistan entered into direct conflict in the name of protecting their border. And as a result, India also deported their army for the same sake, and the conflict started to blaze up. On this consequence, the United Nations proposed to form the United Nations Commission for India and Pakistan (UNCIP) under the resolution of 47 on 21 April 1948 and called for a ceasefire and asked the government of Pakistan to ensure the withdrawal of its troops from the state of Jammu Kashmir who had intruded into the state. It also asked the government of India to reduce its armed forces from the zone and so that a situation can be created for to hold up and stabilize. But unfortunately, the situation didn't create any peace and because of the differences over interpretation of the procedure. After the 1947 war, the India and Pakistan has got into war in 1965 and 1999, known as the Kargil War. Pakistan and India forces had violent clashes over the disputed territory along the border in the 1965 war. The situation turned worse when Pakistan Army tried to occupy using force. The Security Council later on passed Resolution 211 on September 20 and calling for an end to the fighting and initiate a negotiation in the settlement of Kashmir problem. This actually had an immediate result, and India and Pakistan consecutively called for a ceasefire on September 21 and 22. But later on, in middle 1999, the Kargil War broke out, where alleged insurgents and Pakistani soldiers infiltrated Jammu and Kashmir, which resulted to a large-scale conflict between India and Pakistan armies. In the final stage, major battles by Indian and Pakistan forces occurred, resulting in India recapturing most of the territories which were held by the Pakistani army. Recently, India has taken the unilateral decision to revoke provision of Article 370 and thus diminishing the special status and limited autonomy of Jammu and Kashmir. This is being predicted that it will hamper the renewal of peace process between India and Pakistan. It is being accused that India has violated the UN Security Council resolution on Kashmir and 1972 Simla Agreement and Lahore Declaration. Now, how international law can be effective in this very phenomenon of Jammu Kashmir conflict? Jammu Kashmir is a very important asset for the politics of not only India and Pakistan, but also the South Asian and the whole Asian phenomenon. Because at the whole conflict poses serious threat towards basic human, political, culture, and economic rights of the Kashmiri people. The Kashmiri people bear a different sense of culture, tradition, religion, and they have a different self-dependent life or phenomenon. Because of this ongoing conflict, they are facing threat to natural resources, disruption of life, losing their own life, and their process of livelihood. So it has become a major concern for the principal subject of international relations and international human rights law. The principle of international covenants and conventions are universal in nature, and Kashmiri people have every right to question the violation of these rights. The principle of non-discrimination is obviously complemented by the principle of equality as stated in Universal Declaration of Human Rights that all human beings are free and equal in rights and dignity. And it aims to respect the rights of others. This obligation to respect means the state should not hand over in any enjoyment of human rights. It is the primary obligation of state parties and signatories of the UDHR, International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, and International Covenant on Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights. Now, in between this conflict between India and Pakistan, we often forget the people who are residing in this place. We do not ask what is the consent or what is the concept of those people. Those people who are asking for independence from both the side and arise as a different nation. This major point is being missed. This group needs to be backed up by proper diplomatic and international assistance so that they can present their view and the world can know what the people living there and want. The consecutive wars, massive loss of life, the uncontrolled use of natural resources by the two countries is causing prime disadvantage only to those people living there and not the state who are fighting over it. Before final settlement, there are certain measures to be considered and taken by the international community to help the Kashmiri people in the process of confidence building measure. Both the nations need to increase their bureaucratic cooperation at every level. A third-party intervention and mediation can be effective towards the resolution of Jammu Kashmir dispute. Finally, a good governance, political, social, and economic development should be encouraged through participatory democracy in all administrative regions of Jammu and Kashmir to create a democratic, political, and trustworthy situation. And most of all, the international human rights law and other international law should be effectively implemented in those regions by making the people there aware about their own rights. And as a result, a final solution of this conflict can be brought out in a more peaceful and diplomatic way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ahona.
Thank
So
so
we are moving on to the next paper today, and the title of the paper is "How Arms Supply by International Allies to Fragile State Cause Serious Arms Conflict: Case of Syrian Civil War," and this is going to be presented by Tropa Shorkar, Department of Peace and Conflict, University of Dhaka. Tropa, floor is yours, ma'am. Unmute. Tropa, unmute the. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving me the floor to speak on my topic today. So I am going to talk on how arms supply by international allies to fragile state cause serious armed conflict, and I have used here the example of Syrian civil war. So starting here, we need to understand what a fragile state is. According to Peace and Conflict Advisor of Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, fragile state is a low-income country. Fragile state is a low-income country characterized by weak state capacity, susceptible to political crisis, breakdown of state security system where government system is challenged by rival groups or communities under distress, and leads to civil war. There are 5 dimensions of fragility determined by OECD. They are violence, justice, institutions, economic foundation, and resilience. Here, violence means a reduction of any types of violence and violent death caused by interpersonal injuries, political instability, or battle-related deaths. Here, justice means ensuring equal access to law for everyone. And then institutions means ensuring and building accountable and transparent and inclusive institutions for all in the country. Then economic foundation here means reduction of youth unemployment and developing economic, social, and political inclusion. Then the resilience means building adaptive capacity when a country faces economic, social, or environmental threats. So here on, in the Syrian civil war case, we can see that Syria is vulnerable in 5 dimensions of fragility determined by OECD. There is poor monetary system which lead to plundering of government arsenal and foreign military supplies, which triggered intensive existing conflict. It also raised antagonism between minority and majority ethnic groups. Also, for a stable and development, the precondition is proper training and equipped security forces, which lacked Syria, and the unlimited supplies of arms ammunition has led to corruption in transaction, killing of innocent civilians, destruction of state infrastructure in the civil war. So here on, we need to understand why the international allies has contributed or engaged in the civil war. They have their own personal gains or interest in the war. For such as we can see that Russia, Iran, Iraq, China has supported Assad government for the economic interest in the country. On the other hand, US, France, Britain, Canada, Germany, Turkey, Israel, Saudi Arabia have been supporting opposite group of Syria government for their geopolitical position of Syria. Or it can be said that it is an opportunity to break age-old alliance of Syria and Iraq. That's why they had been engaging in the civil war from the beginning. Now moving on to the arms supply by international allies, we can see that they have been supplying total amount of 7.7 billion worth arms by USA, and Russia and Qatar have been supplying $3 billion of worth arms. EU nation worth 882 million worth supplies of arms. And here on, for example, we have seen they have been using sarin, mustard gas, chlorine gas, cluster bombs, fuel air bombs, anti-tank missiles such as Russia's 9M133 Cornet, US-made BGM-71 TOW, European 9K111 Fagot, Factoria launchers are some of the dangerous weapons has been using in the civil war from the beginning. So we can say that the engagement of various international allies in the civil war has made the existing conflict more vulnerable, as the easy supply of light weapons or small arms has caused different fiction groups to easily manipulate the peace process, hampered and getting into more conflict. That's why we can say that the international allies has a serious influence in causing serious armed conflict in a fragile state. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Troppa. It's another good presentation, and it speaks about the condition, geopolitical condition exists now in Syria. So we are moving on to the next presenter, and Mr. Jayanta Bashak from Department of Urban and Regional Planning, Jahangirnagar University, is going to talk about the vulnerable condition of globalization and the world economy due to the infectious demonic attack of COVID-19. Mr. Jayanto, you can present now. Mr. Jayanto, are you here?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Okay, audio only, no problem. Go ahead.
Welcome everyone. Myself Jayanta Boshak. I'm an undergraduate student of Jahangirnagar University, Department of Urban and Regional Planning. Today, I had a presentation on the topic about the vulnerable condition of globalization and the world economy due to the infectious demonic attack of COVID-19. I think this is a timely topic to talk about. Here are my objectives of the presentation. Throughout my whole presentation, I will talk about a good understanding between the pertinent link between COVID-19 and globalization as well as the world economy. After that, my presentation will analyze the impacts of COVID-19 on globalization and the world economy. Finally, I will have some scrutinization about the way forward to appease the impacts. Okay, so, at first I have to say that there is a pertinent inverse relationship between COVID and globalization as well as the world economy. The inverse relationship, as the COVID-19 increasing, the trend of globalization and the world economy is decreasing. So I say inverse relationship between the two terms. As it actually breaks the cycle, and in the meantime encourages people to more anti-globalization. Here in this slide, I have shown that due to this COVID-19 pandemic, authorities of maximum country have travel bans. They restrict social gathering, and and they are closing their workplaces. Okay, so while I'm talking about the effects of COVID-19 on globalization and the world economy, I will talk about three salient features. My first feature will be fragile transportation channels. Second feature will be stagnant economic forces. And third feature will be abject pragmatic policies. Okay, so while I'm talking about fragile channels for globalization, I have some empirical examples here from which we can understand the main point. At first, I'll show that in 2019, 4.5 million passengers traveled by airlines and are reduced to 2.2 million during the pandemic. Moreover, 800 cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed to have originated in cruise ship settings. Okay, now let's take a look at the stagnant societal and economic ambience. I say stagnant because restrictive lockdowns acted as a response to the pandemic that has led to decrease in production, consumption, employment, and supply chains. After that, several international and national sports, conferences, and concerts have been cancelled due to the pandemic, causing massive losses in the host nation. COVID-19 affected pragmatic policies. We all know that concerned authorities of maximum country impose social distance policies and lockdown restriction in many countries. And there have been arguments about the social policies can trigger recession. And same in the lawmaking process. The lawmakers in many countries supported and extended social distancing policies, damning the consequences of social distancing on the economy. Okay, this slide, I have presented some way forward. The COVID-19 is growing continuous backlash against the world economy and the globalization. As the time is not abundant here, I'll just give some empirical lessons that what should we do. To cure its negative consequence towards the world's leaders should put more of their acumen into treating the world with care. We need to revisit the disaster preparedness in response to our surrounding environments, revitalizing state. And this is how we can smooth the way that have been destroyed by the impacts of COVID-19. And these are my references. Thank you all for being with me.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Joyantov. It was a interesting hypothesis and your message to world leader. I do have a question later on to who you are addressing, actually. Okay, so we move to the last paper now. It's titled Silk versus Cotton, A Tale of Love and Hate. Very provocative title indeed. It is going to be presented by Mr. Chaudhry Mujaddid Ahmed, Department of International Business, University of Dhaka. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me just share the screen first, then we can start. So, is the slide visible?
Not yet. Now it's coming. Yeah, it's good now.
Okay. So thank you very much. It is an actually great privilege, and I personally believe that it is my great honor to represent my little finding in front of such enlightened individuals and esteemed personals. So let me introduce myself first. My name is Chaudhry Mujaddid Ahmed. I'm currently an MBA student of Department of International Business. My area of interest is international trade, international political economy, and geopolitics. And the research currently I'm doing on that is actually Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar Economic Corridor. And my paper, The Silk versus Cotton, A Tale of Love and Hate, is just a sister concern of my research. So let's go to the paper actually. So first thing, so from the historical and the economic point of view, it is certain that the standoff between China and India is not a 2-day-old matter. It is developed by the years of strategic and geopolitical phenomena. The socio-political turmoil of these two states is so deep that the heat of the conflict can be seen among the common citizens at the very moment, which we have been seeing the recent crisis. So despite of this coldness, however, my research and findings, which I have so far, my insignificant studies have shown that there a thing that actually drives it to the more next level, and that is trade. And that is how we will see. The first slide says the two tigers, because there is a great proverb that two tigers cannot share the same mountain. Well, that is a philosophy, but there is another philosophy that there are two tigers. That is why they are check and balancing each other, and continuous development is driving from the same goal. And that is we'll see in the following points. So first, let us see a historical timeline of the Chinese or Indian relationship. It all started in 1914 with the McMahon Line, when the Tibetan border was not such accepted by the Chinese government, when the British India said, yeah, this is actually the border we want. So finally, when India got liberated from the British, so the diplomatic tie was established, and perhaps there will be some peace in that region, but there was the 1962 Great War. After that, both of the parties realized that war is not worth it. So finally, they moved to the proxy war concept, because statecraft does not rest. And actually, to be very frank, in 1968, RAW was founded only to counter MSS and ISI. Now, coming to the perspective, so understanding the geopolitics, they understood that they have to come in a common ground. So relations was normalized again. But after Indira Gandhi's movement to the actual line of control, things got little out of hand. But when Rahul Gandhi came to power, things were more focused on trade, and that was the element of peace that we will be seeing. So in the area of conflict, there are two parts. On one side, there is the border conflict, the maritime influence, the energy, Tibet, the Seven Sisters, or the regional influence. These things are productive matters in international politics. But what is actually traded off is trade and economic development. Both parties understood that trade and economic development weighs furthermore or balances the relationship among them two, that they cannot go to a hostile conflict or traditional warfare, what we say now. But there is something which they are fighting very strong for, and that is the economic development. This is a global world. So both have something to offer. And first thing is the multilateral economic influence. So China actually introduced their old Silk Road concept into Belt Road Initiative, and India, as usual, that is something not only sentimental, but geopolitically, because of the China-Pakistan economic corridor was in the BRI project, and the Kashmir issue drive them to stand out of it. But India will not stand still in this matter. So they actually revived their own economic corridor or economic trade route, that is the cotton route, which was a very popular trade route in the first century of the Common Era. So eventually my research found that these two great multilateral institutions actually gathered around in the Fertile Crescent in the name of trade. They have their issues from the very ancient time, but they always actually agreed on a point, and that's trade. That is why we're calling it the forbidden love. And the forbidden love is a very beautiful atmosphere, because it is a competitive atmosphere is required in statecraft. Because if you have a foreign enemy, your internal enemies are relatively less problem in the political dimension. And economy is the new war field. If you're an economic superpower, you are a superpower. Everyone has a nuclear weapon now in the statecraft, but economy is something which is very expensive at the very moment. So that is why there is an understanding of importance of interdependency. They both understand they are both interdependent, India and China. There is the intra-trade of 16.5 billion of export to China to India, and $16.6 billion of export to China from India. Now, that is something we don't see regularly in the hostile relationship. Now, coming to the history of working mutual benefits, if you see the historical timeline, that was actually justified. There were hiccups, but eventually they found a way in the name of mutual or inclusive development. And finally, the eventual unification of trade is the must, because in spite of political coldness. So I'd like to end my statement or my paper with one statement that is stated in paper. This is an epic tale of these two great nations, articulates the evergreen forbidden love. It is just like the first love we can never get, where it is difficult to be strong together, but silently keeping trace of one another. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mujaddid, for a nice conclusion and your in-depth referring to interpersonal relationship and international political economy is fascinating. I am really blown away the way you connected both these topics together. We'll have questions in the subsequent session. So, ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers, we have kind of completed the first part of today's session, and we have attended 5 brilliant topics presented by the authors themselves, and we have listened to their insights. So what I plan to do now is to move on to the second part. But before I move on, I have 5 specific questions to the presenters, and I would be requesting the presenters slash authors to kindly take a note, because we would like to give them some time to ponder upon the questions, and we'll get back to them after we finish the second segment. So my first question to the first presenter is, I would be more interested to know your insight about the theoretical concept that you wanted to explore in explaining the rape culture in Bangladesh. And a subsequent question is, I hope you are meaning about mainstream media rather than the alternate or the social media aspect, and if social media aspect has some impact in facilitating or curbing the trend of rape culture in Bangladesh. So that is my question. I hope you could note it, and we'll get back to you, as I said, later on. My question to the second presenter today, about Jammu Kashmir, if you can enlighten us more about the impact of the latest cancellation of special status by India, because India occupies the larger part of the Jammu Kashmir territory. And what do you actually mean by the international law enforcement? Because the number of covenants that you mentioned, these are actually, I mean, at the international level or UN level, these are covenants in Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Child of Rights, children and all. But how do you actually see enforcement of these rights for the Kashmiris, and by who? Third presenter, my question is, would you be able to tell us more about the impact of arms supplies that created the fragility of Syria? Because to my understanding, after the Syrian civil war, the arms started coming in because there is already a war-like situation, and you have rightly shown number of parties came in. So before the beginning of the Syrian civil war, after the Arab Spring, Syria was kind of very stable country. So do you have any insights in explaining whether the arms come in later in the period and that created an instability, or vice versa? Fourth presenter, my question to you very simple. Well, we understand the globalization, some of the sectors of globalization has been impacted, like travel and small business, as you rightly mentioned. But on the other side, we see the vaccines has gone global, the PPE gone global. So there are bit of differences in terms of globalizations and materials flowing between and amongst the countries. So do you still think that COVID actually could impacted globalization in a way that you wanted to say? And the fifth paper, my question is, we do see number of economic blocks coming up in South Asia, Southeast Asia actually, and in our personal research on Rohingya crisis, we actually explored the the number. I mean, there are more than 5 or 6 groupings. So my question is, are these actually effective in terms of de-escalation of interstate conflict? Because we have just seen the conflict in Galwan Valley by both India and China. And also, how do you explain India's abstination from RCEP, the latest economic grouping where India didn't join? And do you think it is going to be beneficial for the region in terms of global conflict in the future? So please think on these questions. We'll get back to you after we finish second session. So ladies and gentlemen, let's dive into the second part today. And we have our first speaker, and he is Mr. Abdul Qayyum, Head of Communications, UNDP Dhaka, and he's going to talk about COVID changes and challenges in communication media. Sir, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. good evening, good morning, based on your time zone. So, after listening all the presentations and meeting Dr. Kausar online, I'm just wondering actually what I'm doing here, because I'm neither a researcher nor an academician like Dr. Kausar or my fellow panelist, Miss Fatima, if I'm correct. Miss Maria Hussain. So just wondering, like, what I'm doing actually, because as I said, I'm not a good student as well. But what I do is just a kind of I do it from my passion, which is a development communications. So I use communications as a tool for empowering people's life, giving the voice to the voiceless. This is what I'm doing. সো আমি কিন্তু ওই যখন আমি স্টুডেন্ট ছিলাম তখনও আমি নট লাইক আ ভেরি গুড স্টুডেন্ট, এখনো আমি নট এ ভেরি গুড কাইন্ড অফ স্টুডেন্ট অ্যাজ ওয়েল, বাট আমার কাজটা আমি করি প্যাশন দিয়ে। দিস ইজ হোয়াট আই এম ডুইং। And when, again, by the way, thanks to Beyond Peace for inviting me here. I learned a lot from all the 5 presentations. I really learned a lot. So that will definitely help me, particularly the first one, which is gender stereotype in media. As I closely work with media, and gender is a very big issue in this sector. So this will definitely help me. But of course, the other 4 presentations will help me to some extent. So right now, I'm the head of communications for UNDP, and I have been doing this communications for almost now 17 years. So this, as you can easily understand, this is what I'm actually on. I mean, I only know about this thing. Other than that, আমি কিছুই না আসলে কিছুই করতেও পারি না। In fact, যদি আমি কালকে এরকম হয় যে people say we don't need communications, then absolutely I have no job to do, because ওই যে বললাম আমার অন্য I have no other knowledge. Okay. Interestingly, when the moment COVID hit in March in Bangladesh, একদম different একটা kind of aspect in communications that we experience, we are actually still experiencing, which is absolutely like as before COVID, how we communicate is going out to the field, meeting people, sending message across. But when this pandemic hit, then আমরা দেখলাম যে আমরা ঘর থেকে বেরোতে পারছি না, but still we had to disseminate information. We had to reach people from different parts of the country. So it is different ball game ছিল আমাদের জন্য. So absolutely new learning as well. So how we did that? Of course, online was still is kind of first tool that we are using during this pandemic. So এটাতে একটা part, এবং of course as it is kind of an unprecedented challenge, not only for the কি বলবো for development worker, but also for the front lines like doctors, সবার জন্য এটা একটা unprecedented, কেউই আমরা রেডি ছিলাম না এই ধরনের একটা কি বলবো প্যান্ডেমিক বা ভাইরাসকে ফাইট করার জন্য। So একদিকে UN has been fighting with this pandemic, আরেকদিকে আরেকটা ফাইট আমরা অ্যানাউন্স করি, সেটা হচ্ছে গিয়ে ফাইট এগেইনস্ট ইনফোডেমিক। What does it mean? সেটা হচ্ছে গিয়ে যে এই যে আমরা দেখলাম the moment COVID hit, abundance of misinformation, fake information, এগুলা spread হচ্ছে like anything, very rapidly spread হচ্ছে. So no matter how good we are in fighting this pandemic, unless we are able to fight infodemic, এই pandemic কে আসলে থামানো যাচ্ছিল না। So এখনো এটা still there, but এখন অনেকটা better in terms of infodemic. সো ওখানে কি হয়, তখন আমরা দেখি যে যে আমরা যদিও ইউজ করছি ইন্টারনেট বা সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া টু স্প্রেড আউট দ্য মেসেজ, বাট এই সোশ্যাল মিডিয়াকে ইউজ করেই মিস ইনফরমেশন বা ফেক নিউজও স্প্রেড হচ্ছে এট দ্য সেম টাইম। তো তখন এই যেহেতু সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া ইজ দ্য টুল ফর স্প্রেডিং দিস মিসইনফরমেশন, আমরা এটাকেই চিন্তা করি কিভাবে উই ক্যান ইউজ দিস to stop a misinformation. তখন আমরা যেটা করি, আমরা ইমিডিয়েটলি 5টা স্টেপে আমরা কাজ শুরু করি, মানে 5 স্টেপস যে বলি আমি। সো প্রথম স্টেপ ডেফিনেটলি হচ্ছে গিয়ে রাইট ইনফরমেশনটাকে শেয়ার করা, সেটা হচ্ছে কি অথেন্টিক সোর্স থেকে, যেমন WHO বা অন্য যারা আমাদের গভর্নমেন্টের যে হেলথ ডিপার্টমেন্ট আছে DGHS, ওই রাইট ইনফরমেশনটাকে হচ্ছে গিয়ে শেয়ার করা। হ্যাঁ, শেয়ার করা ইন আ ডিফারেন্ট ওয়ে, নট জাস্ট লাইক WHO says this। কারণ আমি যদি বলি WHO says this, তাহলে হয়তো জেনারেল মানুষ মানে খুব একটা আমল করবে না, কারণ it's a kind of technical thing। WHO কে probably if you ask my grandparents, they don't bother who is WHO, who is who, তাই না? So তখন ওই মেসেজটাকে ওদের মতো করে বলা যেন ওরা ইজিলি বুঝতে পারে, হ্যাঁ, ইউজিং ডিফারেন্ট কাইন্ড অফ ক্রিয়েটিভ কন্টেন্ট, গান দিয়ে হোক বা লোকাল ডায়ালেক্ট হোক, পোস্টার হোক, বিভিন্ন ভাবে আমরা এটা ওই রাইট ইনফরমেশনটাকে শেয়ার করা শুরু করি। সো দ্যাটস নাম্বার 1 স্টেপ। নাম্বার 2, আমরা কি করি, আমরা ইমিডিয়েটলি আমরা পার্টনারিং করি উইথ ডিফারেন্ট বিজনেস আইডেন্টিটি, লাইক ফেসবুকের সাথে আমরা পার্টনারিং করি, আমরা হোয়াটসঅ্যাপের সাথে পার্টনারিং করি, ভাইবের সাথে পার্টনারিং করা হয়, যেন কি হয়, যেন ওই এই যে ইন্টারনেট বেসড টুল গুলা বা মিডিয়াম গুলা আছে ওখান থেকেও যেন রাইট ইনফরমেশনটা স্প্রেড হয়। সো যখনই এনি ফেক নিউজ স্প্রেড অন ফেসবুক, তখন ইউএন থেকে ফেসবুককে নোটিফাই করা হয়। হয়তো বা ফেসবুক ট্র্যাক করতে পারে না, বাট ইফ উই নো লাইক দিস ইজ আ রুমার, দিস ইজ আ ফেক নিউজ, ইমিডিয়েটলি আমরা ফেসবুককে এটা করি, নোটিফাই করি। তখন ফেসবুক ইমিডিয়েটলি স্টেপ নেয় টু স্টপ দ্যাট। হোয়াটসঅ্যাপও সেম করা হয়। এভাবে বিভিন্ন বিজনেস যে আইডেন্টিটি আছে তার সাথে আমার পার্টনারিং করা হয়। পার্টনারিং করে আমরা এই মিস ইনফরমেশনটাকে স্টপ করার চেষ্টা করি। দ্যাটস নাম্বার 2। এরপর আমরা যেটা করি, আমরা স্টিল we are working with different media journalists. Media means like traditional media, so TV, newspaper, radio, even group of journalists। এটা আমরা এখানেও করছি, যেরকম ওয়ার্ল্ড ওয়াইড হচ্ছে জিনিসটা, যে ওদেরকে অ্যাওয়ার করা, ওদেরকে রাইট ইনফরমেশন সোর্সটাকে দেখিয়ে দেওয়া, যে কোথা থেকে ওরা ডিবাঙ্ক করতে পারবে। যদি ওনারাও দেখে যে একটা ইনফরমেশন বাট দে আর নট শিওর যে ওদের ইট ইজ রাইট অর রং, ওই রাইট আর রং কোথেকে জাজ করবে, ওই সোর্সটাকেও ওনাদেরকে দেখিয়ে দেওয়া, এবং ইন দেয়ার ওন ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজ, not with technical kind of knowledge, but of course in an easy way, so that they can understand very easily. So it is number 3 step. এরপর আমরা যেটা করি, আরেকটা স্টেপ, সেটা হচ্ছে কি সিভিল সোসাইটি কে মোবিলাইজ করা। ফর ইনস্ট্যান্স দেয়ার আর ডিফারেন্ট এনজিওস ওয়ার্কিং ইন দিস সেক্টর। আমরা এখানে ব্র্যাকের সাথে কাজ করা হয়, এরকম মানে অনেকের সাথে কাজ করা হয়, যেন ইট ইজ নট জাস্ট ইউএন অর নট জাস্ট গভর্নমেন্ট, বাট we work together in a coordinated way। এবং আমরা যেটা করি, যে একটা গ্রুপ ফর্ম করা হয়, গ্রুপটাকে বলা হয় RCCE, রিস্ক কমিউনিকেশনস এন্ড কমিউনিটি এনগেজমেন্ট। এই RCCE গ্রুপের আন্ডারে, এই যে আমি বললাম বিভিন্ন সিভিল সোসাইটি আছে, প্রাইভেট সেক্টর, গ্রামীণ ফোনও ছিল, এখানে গভর্নমেন্টও ছিল, আমরা সবাই মিলে কোঅর্ডিনেটেড ওয়েতে এই রাইট ইনফরমেশন স্প্রেড করা এবং মিস ইনফরমেশন বা ফেক নিউজকে স্টপ করা, এই কাজটা আমরা করি। এবং লাস্ট থিং যেটা আমরা করি, সেটা আমরা ইউএন থেকে একটা কি বলবো ইনফরমেশন ভেরিফাই করার জন্য একটা ক্যাম্পেইন আমরা করি, নাম ভেরিফাইড। ইফ ইউ গুগল ইউল সি ভেরিফাইড নামে একটা ওয়েবসাইট লঞ্চ করা হয়, যেখানে ইভেন ইউ ক্যান ভেরিফাই ইনফরমেশন whether it is right or wrong। সো এই 4-5 স্টেপ নিয়ে ইউএন প্রথমে কাজ শুরু করে, এবং এটা কিন্তু এখনো কন্টিনিউয়াস। শুরুর দিকে হয়তো একটু বেশি ছিল, বাট এখন একটু কমে আসছে, বিকজ এখন যেহেতু এই মিস ইনফরমেশনটা, আমি বলবো না একদম চলে গেছে, বাট স্টিল ওটা এখনো আছে। সো আমাদের এই ফাইটটা এখনো কন্টিনিউয়াস। এখন আমি যদি বলি যে কেন এটা ইম্পর্টেন্ট, এই যে মিস ইনফরমেশনটাকে ফাইট করা কেন ইম্পর্টেন্ট, যে কোনো ক্রাইসিসে বা শুধু ক্রাইসিস, আমি যদি বলি এমনি ইন আ জেনারেল, ইন আ নর্মাল সিচুয়েশন, ইনফরমেশন হচ্ছে কি ইজ অ্যান এইড। মানে কি, ইনফরমেশন হচ্ছে গিয়ে একটা কাইন্ড অফ সাহায্য। সেটা কি, কিরকম সাহায্য? ইনফরমেশন ক্যান সেভ লাইফ। If you can send the right information at the right time to the right people using the right channel, definitely it can save lives. এবং এটা আমরা এক্সাম্পল অনেক আছে, সাইক্লোনের সময় দেখি আমরা, বা ফ্লাড বা যে কোনো ক্রাইসিসেই আমরা যদি রাইট ইনফরমেশনটাকে রাইট টাইমে, হ্যাঁ, ইউজিং দ্য রাইট চ্যানেল আমরা শেয়ার করতে পারি, তাহলে লাইফ সেভ করা যায়। সো ইম্পর্টেন্ট, সো ইনফরমেশন ইজ ভেরি ক্রুশাল। অন দ্য আদার হ্যান্ড, যদি ইনফরমেশনটাকে আমরা কোনো অসৎ উদ্দেশ্যে এটা অল্টার করি, এটাকে আমরা ফেক নিউজ করি জাস্ট টু গেট সাম পপুলারিটি বা অন্য কোনো ইল অবজেক্টিভ নিয়ে, সেক্ষেত্রে ইট ক্যান কিল পিপল, এবং ইট ডিড অ্যাকচুয়ালি। এই মিস ইনফরমেশনের কারণে কিন্তু এই কোভিড এর সময়ও অনেক মানুষ আসলে মারা যায়, যে জাস্ট বিকজ দে আর নট ফুললি অ্যাওয়্যার অফ ইট। এখনো আমরা অনেকে প্রপারলি অ্যাওয়্যার না যে হাউ টু ওয়্যার মাস্ক, এবং মাস্ক পরা কি আসলে ইম্পর্টেন্ট কিনা, আমরা এখনো এটা পুরাপুরি ভাবে অ্যাওয়্যার না বা কনসিয়াস না। সো আমাদের ফাইটটা স্টিল কন্টিনিউ, এবং এই ফাইটটা আমরা কখনোই একা পারবো না। এই যারা অডিয়েন্স আছে, পার্টিকুলারলি স্টুডেন্টস এবং আদার্স, সবাইকে নিয়ে এই ফাইটটা করতে হবে। এর কারণ কি? কারণ হচ্ছে গিয়ে দ্য মোমেন্ট ইউ সি এনি কাইন্ড অফ মিস ইনফরমেশন অর ফেক নিউজ ফ্লাইং অ্যারাউন্ড সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া অথবা তোমার পার্সোনাল ফেসবুকে, try to debunk that, try to stop that, or try to correct that. যে এটা শেয়ার করছে তাকে বলা যে look, this is the right information, the information that you are sharing which is not right. So এইভাবে যদি আমরা সবাই একসাথে কাজ করি, তাহলে ইনফরমেশন আসলেই একটা এইড হিসেবে কাজ করবে। আদারওয়াইজ এটা একটা কিলার, এটা মানুষকে একদম ডিস্ট্রয় করতে পারে। আমি যদি একটু পিছনে যাই, আমি জানি না তোমাদের আমি জানি না আপনার মনে আছে কিনা যে রামুতে যে ঘটনাটা ঘটে, রাইট? তখন একটা ফেক নিউজ একজনের ফেসবুকে করা হয়, মানে স্প্রেড করা হয়, ওটার উপর বেস করে একটা কাইন্ড অফ কমিউনাল ভায়োলেন্স রামুতে হয়, এবং এটা আরো পরেও অনেক জায়গাতেই হয়, প্রবাবলি নগাতে হয়, এরকম বিভিন্ন জায়গায় এই ইনফরমেশনটাকে অল্টার করে একটা অসৎ উদ্দেশ্য নিয়ে একটা ভায়োলেন্স কিন্তু অনেকবারই হয়েছে। তো এই ব্যাপারটা এই কারণে ক্রুশিয়াল যে ইনফরমেশনটাকে রাইট জায়গায় ইউজ করা, এবং এগেইন এখানে আমাদের প্রত্যেকে একটা রোল থাকবে। এখানে শুধু ইউএন একা কখনোই পারবে না, বা যারা আমরা কাজ করি কমিউনিকেশনস নিয়ে কাজ করি, আমার মতো যদি 1000 জন কাজ করে একসাথে, ইটস ইম্পসিবল আনলেস এভরিওয়ান বিইং আ সিটিজেন, বিইং আ রেসপন্সিবল সিটিজেন। আমরা যদি এই আমাদের এই যে সামান্য দায়িত্বটুকু আছে, কারণ অল অফ আস আর ইউজিং ইন্টারনেট, তাই না? এখন তো আসলে আমি যদি বলি যে ইজ দেয়ার এনিওয়ান নট ইউজিং ফেসবুক, প্রবাবলি 100 জনে একজন থাকবে হয়তোবা যে নট ইউজিং ফেসবুক বা অন্যান্য সোশ্যাল মিডিয়া। সো ওটাকে রাইট ভাবে ইউজ করা, প্রোডাক্টিভলি ইউজ করা, নট ইন আ ইল ম্যানার, নট ইন আ ডিফারেন্ট ওয়ে, তাহলেই এটা পসিবল হবে আর কি। আদারওয়াইজ এটা ইম্পসিবল ফর এনি ইউএন এজেন্সি। এখানে আমি এখন থামবো। ইফ দেয়ার ইজ এনি কোয়েশ্চেন ফিউচার, আই এম হ্যাপি টু টেক দ্য কোয়েশ্চেন। So thank you. Over to you, Dr. Kausar.
Thank you so much, Mr. Abdul Qayyum. And of course, like others today, we'll disagree with Mr. Qayyum's initial prelude that he is not very suited in the panel, but we all think that he is very much, and that what he proved after the initial couple of seconds, the way he presented about communication, and we do all understand the importance during the pandemic, the use of information. So we are moving on to the next presenter, and she's a professor at the Department of Peace and Conflict Studies, University of Dhaka, Maria Hussain, and she's going to talk on livelihood of displaced Rohingyas and security dilemma of Bangladesh. So, Professor Maria, floor is yours, ma'am.
শুভ সন্ধ্যা সবাইকে, শুভ সকাল কাউসার ভাই, ভালো আছেন আশা করি সবাই। তো আসলে আমাকে যখন বলা হলো, আমি দেখলাম আমার স্টুডেন্টরা অনেক বেশি প্রিপেয়ার্ড, সবাই সুন্দর করে প্রেজেন্টেশন রেডি করে নিয়ে আসছে। আমি তোমাদের থেকে অনেক পিছিয়ে আছি, আমি কোনো প্রেজেন্টেশন রেডি করে নিয়ে আসি নাই, বরং আমার কাছে মনে হয়েছে যে আমি এখন একদম অনগোয়িং আমার একটা কাজ যেটা চলছে সেটা নিয়ে বরঞ্চ তোমাদের সাথে কথা যদি বলি, বা আপনাদের সাথে যদি আমি একটু কথা বলি, হয়তো আমারই কিছুটা উপকার হবে, আর আপনাদের কিছুটা উপকার করতে পারলেও ভালো লাগবে। তো তার আগে একটুখানি বলে নিতে চাই যে রেফিউজি এই টপিকটা চুজ করার জন্য আমাকে অর্থে আগে থেকেই বলছিল, কারণ ও আসলে জানে আমি এই ইস্যুতে কাজ করি। তো আমি বেশ কিছুদিন ধরেই আসলে রেফিউজি ইস্যুতে কাজ করছি, বলতে গেলে 2012 থেকে। তো পরবর্তীতে প্রোটেকশন, কাউসার ভাই যদি জেনে থাকেন, এডুকেশন নিয়ে আমি কাজ করছি, বা আমি এখন ভাষাঞ্চর বা কক্সবাজারেও কাজ করছি। তো আরেকটা যেটা কাজ করছি আসলে, যেটা যেহেতু একটা থিমই ছিল এখানে, রেফিউজি এন্ড সিকিউরিটি, সো সেই জন্য আমি আসলে ঠিক এই টপিকটাই চুজ করেছি। সো সেই জায়গা থেকে আমি একটুখানি কথা বলতে চাই। টাইটেলটা অলরেডি কাউসার ভাই বলে দিয়েছেন, তো আমি আরেকবার একটু বলি। যে টাইটেলটা হচ্ছে লাইভলিহুড অফ ডিসপ্লেসড রোহিঙ্গা অ্যান্ড সিকিউরিটি ডায়লেমা অফ বাংলাদেশ। এবং এখানে যেটা বলে আমি শুরু করতে চাই আসলে সেটা হচ্ছে যে আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ডিং দ্য সিচুয়েশন অফ ডিসপ্লেসড পিপল and their livelihood and the feelings of social exclusion are actually essential to analyze the security dilemma of a refugee hosting country. Whether one wants it or not, there has been a moral responsibility for the states to deal with the global forced displacement issue. From this point of view, my paper examines actually the extent to which the livelihood of refugees or displaced people creates security dilemma for their countries hosting them. This paper uses the displaced livelihood theory to understand the empowerment and social exclusion of forced migrants in a host country. Displaced livelihood entails the livelihoods of forced migrants in different from other kinds of migrants or poor people of a country. And it's like there are three differences of displaced livelihood, which is actually different from other poor people's livelihood. The first one is all forced migrants are faced with the loss of assets, family and community, emotional and physical health. Number two, struggle of re-establishment on the host community, mostly in a confined camp. And number three, dependency on humanitarian assistance. On the other hand, displacement of people across borders affect security in three levels. The number one is national security agenda, number two, relation between states, and number three, individual security and dignity of displaced people. As far we know, existing higher literature on international security highlights that displaced forced migrants may contribute to insecurity and conflict within the host country. And forced migrants is identified as a threat to both internal and interstate conflict. On the other hand, the alternative literature on human security criticized the existing national security notion and said it undermines the security of individual forced migrants. So from all of these, like when I say all of this literature, the article seeks to test the problem of insecurity assumption inherent in migration security nexus that might be a consequence of displaced livelihood. For example, there is a psychosocial dimension of displaced livelihood. Like adolescent boys face excessive anger and quarreling for the lack of playground, for poor socioeconomic situation, safety and security, tension, etc. On the other hand, adolescent girls face lack of hygiene products and lack of safety and gender-based violence, which leads to increased stress and anxiety, suicidal thoughts, etc. Like as in Cox's Bazar, Bangladesh, a large number of unemployed and idle Rohingyas have been engaging in different criminal activities for money, and maybe they don't have any work to do. Another thing, like power struggle within the refugee camp and outside is very common issue. Multiple groups are competing for power within and outside the refugee population. For example, in Cox's Bazar, a recent survey found that 1 in 3 Rohingya had little or no trust on the Majis. Since the beginning of the recent crisis in September 2017, the government has deployed thousands of soldiers from the Bangladesh military to manage the camps and to resolve disputes. Still, to establish supremacy, Rohingyas sometimes get involved in various crimes and internal conflict. According to Upazila Nirbahi Officer of Ukhia, some 50 complaints of clashes involving Rohingya people are being reported every day. After that, illegal money through arms trade and drugs trafficking is another important issue. The displaced people used to earn like money. Like as the underworld notorious criminals use the southeast border of Bangladesh as the major transit point for arms smuggling. Many Rohingya criminals are making their own gang in camp. The purpose of making this gang is to earn money via illegal activities. According to Cox's Bazar Jela Police, at least 14 gangs are present in Ukhia and Teknaf Rohingya settlement areas. And Yaba is mentionable as top-selling drugs because of its availability and high demand. More than 50% 52% of yaba is made at Chittagong, as it is located in the border of Bangladesh, Myanmar, and become the main route of smuggling yaba. After that, gender perspective is in displaced livelihood is another important concern, because another way of earning illegal money is human trafficking. Another important gender perspective is women's participation in outside work. So these are the things which I can identify in gender perspective point. Like for example, Rohingya women in Cox's Bazar camp receive threats from religious groups for going out to work for aid groups in the camp. From January 2019, almost 150 females who were working as teacher for BRAC left their job. And lastly, military activities in the camp is another way displaced persons choose to survive. Like us, sources confirm that in the tourist town Cox's Bazar, at least 7 to 10 Rohingya terrorist groups are active and involved in criminal activities, and among them, ARSA is the largest. I wish I had shared many other things regarding these issues to you all, but due to time constraint, it's not possible now. I've just gone through the key points. So before concluding, I'd like to say that this paper has highlighted the situation of forced migrants in displacement, which includes social exclusion and marginalization in host country, mental trauma carrying from country of origin, denial of access, assets, and social power in host country, etc. And the feeling of deprivation and ignorance, further engaging them in power struggle and criminal activities, both inside and outside of the camp. Moreover, it explains how these problems create a security dilemma for the host country like Bangladesh. However, as a human being, displaced Rohingya people also have the right to lead a decent life. Aggression from their origin country and the feeling of deprivation in the host country are solely responsible for their unproductive and criminal activities, which can lead to the demise of both the refugees and the host country. If it is possible to provide better livelihood, the refugees can turn into a great asset for the host country. That's all for today. Thank you all for your valuable time. And I don't know, that's all what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Maria. Excellent. It's a very it's a topic of interest. From our side as well, we have a lot of things in common in terms of findings, I believe. Thanks, Maria. So we'll be moving on to the last presenter today, and she's SR Khan Orthi, senior partner of Beyond Peace, today's organizers, and she's going to talk on media influence on social phenomena. So, Orthi, floor is yours.
Hello everyone, and I'm Arthi, and I wanted to talk about media influence on social phenomena. And my condition is more or less similar to Muhammad Abdul Qayyum, what he said actually. I'm not presenting any paper or research, it's just the generalized idea actually, what I understand and what actually it means. So, actually, social phenomena mean what we do in our day-to-day lives. So media, when we talk about media's influence, we need to understand what media actually is. So media is a broad concept. It includes traditional media methods as well as new media methods. For example, there's newspaper, television, radio, and also social media platforms. So media has an impact on our lives whether we realize it or not. It sometimes controls our choices too. It has effects on individual or an audience's thoughts, attitudes, and behavior at the same time. For example, it has an effect on how we vote, an individual's views and beliefs, or skewing a person's knowledge of a specific topic due to being provided false information. And the overall idea of mass media has changed over the time. As time goes by, the media criticism also changes with the change of media platforms. We would see that people nowadays would criticize any media if they provide false information or misrepresent the actual scenario. So as time goes by, the criticism also increases, and also the information flow tend to grow with time actually. So moving on, and during the early 20th century, developing mass media technologies such as radio and film were credited with an almost irresistible power to mold an audience's beliefs, cognitions, and behaviors according to the communicator's will actually. So there are different intervening variables such as demographic attributes, social physiological factors, and different media use, different consumers' behaviors. So there are few filters through which mass media operate, and these actually can be considered as the influence on social phenomena, such as the ownership. Like mass media firms are big corporations trying to make profit for themselves. So most of their news or articles are going to be whatever makes them the most profit at the end of the day. And the for the advertisements, like consumers are willing to pay a lot less to media company, so there are always a deficiency in media companies. So in order to fill this gap, advertisers are used. While the media is being sold to the consumers, those consumers are in effect being sold to the advertisers. So there's the huge influence of media on our day-to-day life, day-to-day lives. So sometimes our preferences are given to the advertisers, sometimes to understand the because to understand the consumer base. And we all know the incident of the presidential incident in 2016, when the Cambridge Analytica was hired from and collected data from the Facebook to influence the voting competition, and how President Trump used those data. So if I want to talk about the media influence on a micro level, individuals can be affected through 6 different ways, such as on cognitive level, their beliefs, attitudes affect physiological and also their behavior. So when we are talking about media, we also think about social media immediately. Now, social media has become a very big deal to a lot of us actually. So to many of us, internet users means the users of social media only, such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and many more. And I don't want to make my speech long, so I will touch a very important part of social media's influence, and that is hate speech. Let me just say that hate speech is like a condition that afflicts certain population, causing them to suffer greatly, while others remain unaware and unsympathetic about it. It gives rise to both physiological and physical harm in cases, and affects a variety of communities. And hate speech directly affects its targets, I mean the people it purports to describe, by frightening, offending, humiliating, or denigrating them. So when people make fun or make funny posts on social media or uses social media to influence that particular phenomenon, they should also remember that sometimes these posts are offensive to someone and it's dehumanizing them. So we should keep in check what we share on social media. And I don't want to stress at this point very much, because Muhammad Abdul Qayyum already described it and talked about it. And I want to tell that it influences a lot of people. How we use media is not actually comprised to ourselves only. It comprises our society, our nation, and broadly the global world actually. So I just want to say that when people ask about that, if I hate someone, I should say that in publicly, or I should express myself it publicly. So I just want to say that freedom of speech comes with a certain responsibility. there's a gray area actually. The Constitution granting us our freedom of speech doesn't mean I should hurt someone, subjectify hate speech. It should be a balancing act of expressing our ideas without causing damage to others. And with that said, I want to conclude my speech and I want to thank you all for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Orti, for your for your presentation. I think it's very interesting and thought-provoking. We'll deal with it more in details in the Q&A session. So, ladies and gentlemen, and dear viewers, we are just finished the major aspects of today's presentations, listening to all these speakers, and now we are actually going to the Q&A session, the most interesting part. So, as a moderator, I had 5 questions to 5 presenters, and my plan is to pose some questions to the second group of speakers today, Professor Maria and Mr. Kayyum, separately. But let's deal with the questions from the presenters in the first segment. So, Mahiratul Jannat, she left. Possibly she has something to do. So she replied in her chat box the questions, and I'm going to read exactly so that viewers and all of us are aware what she replied. So she replied that the theory of representation is actually more relevant in her paper, and the theory of representation establishes that language is a part of the culture and it is the main medium we use to interact with each other. Different forms of media use language to portray meanings in various ways. Example, spoken, text, visual forms. So the theory of representation goes well or might fit well in her paper, which of course is a part of the answer. And the second part, she says that to answer your second question, many research prove that social media actually actively promotes rape culture. Rape culture related content can exist in as a tweet, comment, post, video, photograph on Facebook, Instagram. I hope these are all her answer. So let's move on to the second presenter. If you kindly respond to the question on Jammu and Kashmir. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, sir. So the question given was 2 questions. One was what will be the impact of the revocation of the special status by the India government on the Kashmiri, and the second one was how the international laws can be enforced and how it can be used for the Kashmiri people. And there was a question from Facebook Live, I think, that was also like, what is the mechanism for enforcing the international law? So I will move on to the first one, that is, what is the impact of the revocation of special status by the Indian government? Okay, so first of all, when the government of Narendra Modi decided to revoke its status of the Kashmiri people, the decision on their part was that because of this status that has been provided to the Kashmiri people, the integration of the Jammu Kashmir region is not being possible into the whole Indian development, and as a result, a lot of economic and political and other development is not being able to be reached there. So their point was that to confirm the overall inclusive development of the whole country, they have to revoke this status. But after that, what we have seen that just after the revocation of the status, there has been riot, there has been violence, there has been protests all over the Kashmir and Jammu people because of this revocation, they are losing different kinds of rights. So obviously, the sudden impact after it was protest from the inner people. Secondly, reaction came from the outer world, and most importantly, Pakistan, who is seeing it as a very great threat to the maintenance of peace. First of all, they have accused that India is cancelling the Shimla agreement. Sorry, India has gone against the Shimla agreement, which says that. Excuse me. Which forbids unilateral action to change the status of the state. So Pakistan is accusing that India has gone against the agreement, and they have changed unilaterally taken the decision to change the state of Kashmir and Jammu. Now another threat that I think Pakistan is facing here, that Because of this revocation, and since Jammu and Kashmir will be totally included in the Indian government, Pakistan will not have any chance to continue their intention through their belligerent group. So that will be a political and geopolitical threat to the state, to the whole state. Okay, so the second question is, what is the mechanism for enforcement of international law? Okay, so but to directly say there is no certain mechanism to enforce an international law to a sovereign state. All the sovereign state that are member of the covenants or conventions or the agreement, they are, when they are signing in, they are not bound to sign in, but they are not bound to follow. But since they are signing, they are considered to follow them. Now, how this enforcement or international law can be applicable to the Kashmiri people? Okay. International human rights law prohibits the arbitrary deprivation of life under any circumstances. And India and Pakistan both are the signatory of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. And the Article 6 of ICCPR states that there will no one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his life, and that will be against the law. Now the thing is, when the revocation from the very 1947, when the war and other conflicts in the Jammu Kashmir region has been going on, there has been collateral damages, there has been military attacks, there has been paramilitary attacks. So obviously, the local citizen or the people of Jammu Kashmir has been harmed. So there has been a vital deprivation and vital violation of this law. And ICCPR also prohibits torture and other form of cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. Articles 4 and 7 of ICCPR explicitly ban torture even in times of national emergency. After the revocation of Article 360 by the Narendra Modi government, we can see that immediate curfew was imposed in the Jammu Kashmir region. People were tortured on road. Public movement was restricted. Schools, college, and other business institutions were closed. So obviously, that was a huge violation of their rights.
Have we lost her? Ohana, can you hear us? Okay. Let's give her a couple of seconds, then we'll move to the third presenter for her response to the question.
Thank you, sir. Coming to my question, I like to say that there was already, before the civil war began, there was already pro-democratic protest against the autocratic government of Syria, Assad government. So when the protests were started, they crushed those protests with a serious operation. That means surely there was some lackings of inclusive institutional mechanism, justice systems, and most importantly, it lacked resilience to tackle any kind of threats to remain stable that had to be given by the Assad government. So when the civil war started, many other issues started to rise, like sectarian polarization, interest of international powers, and the rise of Islamic jihadist group IS. So it was kind of a mistake, maybe say that the international community deliberately provided unlimited arms supplies in Syria to their respective supporting groups, knowing the consequences, just to gain from the civil war for their personal interest. So when the easy availability of arms, especially small arms, light arms, among the fiction group, has made the conflict more dangerous and prolonged in nature. So I think it surely had fragile state.
Thank you.
Condition.
Thank you so much, Sopa. Thank you. Ohana, do you want to just
Yes.
finish by quickly? Yeah.
Yes, extremely sorry, sir. There was some technical issues. Okay, so it has been very clear that India has violated some of the international convention and agreements, and as accused by Pakistan, that Shimla Agreement has also been violated. when India has been asked about it, India just have stated that this is an issue of their internal politics. So there has been no violation, and no other countries from outside can intervene into it. So India is a huge country. It has a huge politics. It has extensive history with huge economy. It has allies, enemies, and one of the most important thing about Kashmir and Jammu is that that the nuclear state that has risen up in this region of India and Pakistan was depending on this Kashmir and Jammu. So obviously Kashmir and Jammu is very important for both India and Pakistan. So since India is not being able to be controlled because India and both Pakistan is not being controlled because of the threat of nuclear state, and they are considering every act they are doing in the Kashmir and Jammu conflict, Jammu as their personal, as their internal issue. So here comes the role that is to be played by the great powers, Russia, China, USA, because Jammu Kashmir is not an issue of South Asia or Asia only. It plays a very important role in the geopolitics of the whole international relation. So here the block that has been playing on both sides, they need to come. They need to come up through United Nations with proper negotiation and mediation, feeding these two countries at the same table that these people have some basic human rights, and it is a responsibility of the states who are keeping them or possessing them to ensure them, and that is all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ahona. It was, I would say, a very good response. So we move to the fourth presenter. Go ahead, sir, with your response.
Thank you, sir. Actually, my question was that PPE had been supplied and vaccines will going to be supplied. So, what is my opinion about the effects of COVID on globalization now? Okay, I'll have to answer this. Actually, the coronavirus pandemic is unlike any economic challenges that the world has faced the past. What do you mean by globalization? Actually, globalization is that what promotes and increases interactions between different regions and population around the whole globe. Okay, so globalization means the speed up of movements and exchange. This is exactly the point where I am trying to exaggerate. Globalization speed up the movements, but COVID-19 has made it slower. COVID-19 has made it slower. So COVID-19 has made slower the movements and exchange of human beings, goods, services, capital, technologies, and etc. Okay, so now let's talk about PPE supply, whose recommendation for the rational use of personal protective equipment PPE in healthcare and human care settings, as well as during the handling of cargo. Moreover, it also assesses the current disruption of the global supply chain and considerations for decision making during severe shortage of PPE. Nevertheless, countries do not sit sluggishly for importing the PPE. They have made PPE locally and nationally as well. However, we cannot see the future. Tackling COVID-19 will require the first ever deployment of blockchain in global disruption of vaccine. Blockchain offers an immutable, decentralized database that can help all parties to be sure about the vaccine supplies are being stored and handled properly. Finally, I want to conclude that the COVID-19 pandemic is now expected to trigger the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. However, although the global economy was fragile at the start of 2020, many hope for increased international trade. COVID-19 has shaped all those hopes, bringing the world's factories to a standstill and severely disrupting global supply chain. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Jayanto. Very good response. So, Mr. Mujaddid Ahmed, on to you now for your response. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It is actually a very lovely question and a very on-point question regarding the economic bloc. Can they actually minimize the conflicts? So here are two political philosophy. If you're talking about particular of the national interest, Bangladesh's multilateral organization or institution yet has not seen very much promises in terms of the understanding. But Bangladesh is not in a very conflicting stage with any parties involved in the regional integration. But there's a very crucial point you talk about the regional comprehensive economic partnership, why India did not join that. So it's a very true fact that this is not a new thing for India. India does not like to get integrated in free market economy because India have been playing a very sovereign role in protecting their market interest. You cannot direct go to India and go in for an FDI. You have to have a partnership and joint venture system. That is a completely different dimension. But the second question I'll answer in a very important finding of my current research, that multilateral institutions are the ultimate form of institutional innovation. Because when these organizations cooperate together, for example, here is an example of BRICS: Brazil, Russia, China, India, and South Africa. These countries have aligned for finding a common interest. So there is a very important talk in statecraft. You don't have actually friends or enemies, you have interest. So regional integration are the echo of the which interest you're seeking for. So when you're regionally integrated, that is why China or Russia is very silent about Myanmar, because there are economic intensity. China has a great deep sea port in Myanmar, and India is currently working to have a Myanmar in their block of the blue chain or the Quad Force, which is upcoming. So this concept actually gives that if you see the historical timeline, in the historical time, you expand your area of geopolitics, that is, you are strong. Then it came to the nuke. You have your nuclear arsenal, you're stronger. Then it came to intelligence statecraft. If you're intelligently strong, the CIA, that world of intelligence. But now the theme is economic diplomacy. I can control the market, I can control you. So the domain, the definition of conflict is changing, but the concept of interest remains the same. So that is why the regional integration are the integrators which will affect or somehow motivate to reduce conflict and come to a common or shared goal. I believe I could have.
Thank you. And yes, indeed, you did. Thank you very much for a very comprehensive answer. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the last part of the session, and I was duly warned by the organizer to wrap up. Although I had intended to have a couple of questions for for Mr. Qayyum and Professor Maria, but I will not possibly dare enough to I should oblige to the rules of the organizers per se. So, here is a question from the audience, I believe. Okay, so I am not controlling the questions, so it is the organizers who chose to put up the question to Mr. Qayyum. Yeah, you can go ahead, sir.
The question is, you say something like, we have to be aware of what false news is and what is the authentic one, but how do we know that? There are people who are not habituated in critical and analytical thinking. That's not even possible for everyone. How do you deal with? You don't need to be critical or analytical. You don't need to do a lot of research. Simply Google. If you see news, just simply Google, and if you see there are other sources talking about the same news, like the mainstream newspapers, for instance, Pratham Daily Star, or even international newspapers like Guardian, New York Times. If you see that news is also shared by different sources like mainstream media, then of course the news is authentic. But if you see the news is only shared by Donik Jilmil, Donik Lalnil 24, then of course you honestly you realize that story is fabricated or false. So you don't need to be like super analytical. Just simply Google it, and you'll get. And of course, before you share, just give a pause. Okay, think and then share. Easy. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Fantastic. If I just make a quick couple of seconds, Mr. Qayyum, given your experience in UNDP, how do you see Facebook, Twitter, or all these social media companies, their response time to your request to take down something in terms of content moderation? How responsive they are?
That's a good question. It takes a bit of time, but of course they are very responsive. But as you can imagine, the amount of information they're dealing, so it takes a bit of time. But the good thing is, if they see, and of course, when UN says something, they will consider it as authentic. So they not immediately, but at least 1 or 2 times, they actually take action, and it happens earlier. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me hand over the stage to our to see so that she can finally and officially conclude. And before I leave, for the greater audience, those who have tuned today, thank you very much for being with us for last 1 hour and 30 minutes, 34 minutes actually. And I personally wanted to say something about the group Beyond Peace, and it's an excellent entrepreneurs. I call them knowledge entrepreneurs. They started very well, and we support them. We support their activities and their adventures in building up young professionals, those who want to write and they want to talk about international affairs, peace and conflict issues locally and both globally. So Conflict and Resilience Research Institute always would be supporting in the future projects as well. So once again, thank you very much from Winnipeg. And to see, floor is yours to formally conclude.
থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ স্যার। কথা বলছি খান কামরুল্লাহ তুষি, এক্সিকিউটিভ এডিটর বিয়ন্ড পিস। প্রথমে সকলকে সরি বলে নিচ্ছি, আমাদের সময় স্বল্পতার জন্য সবগুলো প্রশ্নের উত্তর আমরা আজকে দিতে পারছি না, তবে আমরা পরবর্তীতে প্রশ্নগুলো নোট ডাউন করে রাখছি। আমরা চেষ্টা করব উত্তরগুলো আমাদের ভ্যালুয়েবল অডিয়েন্সদের কাছে পৌঁছানোর জন্য। Apparently, within this very limited period of time, we got to learn about international affairs such as Kashmir conflict, international trade and politics, political economy, gender discrimination, media influences on social phenomena, COVID-19 challenges, and international arms trades and other topics. Also, our honorable guests added their valuable assessments on their respective area of interest. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Abdul Qayyum sir. ডেভেলপমেন্ট সেক্টরের প্র্যাকটিক্যাল নলেজের পার্সপেক্টিভেরও দরকার আছে বলে আমাদের মনে হয়েছিল এই ওয়েবিনারে, বেসড অন দ্য এরিয়া অফ ইন্টারেস্ট অফ আওয়ার টুডেজ ইউথ রিসার্চার্স। সো আপনি যে ব্যাপারগুলো আসলে অ্যাড করেছেন COVID-19 এর রেসপন্সে, ইনফরমেশন ফ্লো কিভাবে সোশ্যাল ফেনোমেনাতে এফেক্ট করছে অ্যান্ড অল, এই প্র্যাকটিক্যাল ব্যাপারগুলো আসলে আমরা জেনেছি এবং আমার কাছে পার্সোনালি মনে হয়েছে যে এটা আমাদের সবার জন্য খুবই হেল্পফুল ছিল। So, sir, having you in this session is a privilege for this entire Beyond Peace team. Thank you for joining with us, sir. এরপরে চলে যাচ্ছি আমাদের আজকের দ্বিতীয় অতিথি যিনি ছিলেন, মারিয়া হুসেইন ম্যাম, অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট প্রফেসর, ডিপার্টমেন্ট অফ পিস অ্যান্ড কনফ্লিক্ট স্টাডিজ, ইউনিভার্সিটি অফ ঢাকা। ম্যাম কথা বলেছেন রিফিউজি সিকিউরিটি নিয়ে। আমার পার্সোনাল এরিয়া অফ ইন্টারেস্ট এবং আমার মতো অনেক ইউথ রিসার্চার যারা কাজ করছেন তাদের অনেকের এরিয়া অফ ইন্টারেস্ট এখন ফোর্সড মাইগ্রেন্টস অ্যান্ড রিফিউজি, সিন্স it is a global phenomenon right now. So ma'am, thank you very much for joining with us and for letting us know about different issues regarding this context of Bangladesh. Finally, I would like to thank our honorable moderator of this session, Dr. Kausar Ahmed sir. Sir, we are very much pleased to have you in this session, and the way you conducted this session is like we are honored to have you actually. Thank you very much, sir, for joining with us, for taking your time with us. And
Thank you. Pleasure is mine.
thank you, sir. Also the presenters, the 5 brilliant presenters and authors who showed interest in such a newly inaugurated platform Beyond Peace. The 5 presenters, I would like to show my gratitude to you all, my utmost gratitude to you all. And we, the entire Beyond Peace team, is thanking you all for joining with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me here, and I wish all the very best to Beyond Peace and everyone. Stay well, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.